Cross-border alliances are shifting faster than anyone expected, and the ripple effects are shaking the foundations of tourism and trade alike. A sudden wave of trip cancellations from Canadian tourists to the United States has become more than a travel decision. It's a form of protest. In places like Maine, hoteliers and restaurant owners report staggering declines, with some businesses losing up to 90% of their Canadian clientele. This boycott is a stark reminder that travel can carry a message, especially when national pride and political concerns intertwine. Canadian tourists once poured billions of dollars into U.S. destinations, from shopping in New York to escaping harsh winters in Florida. Now, this sudden withdrawal is sending shockwaves through local economies that relied heavily on Canadian spending. It's not just about passport stamps. This exodus signals anger over political rhetoric and shifting trade policies. Old Orchard Beach, for instance, depended on Canadian visitors for nearly half of its annual tourism revenue, a figure that's now evaporating. Local shops, restaurants, and tour operators face an uncertain future, unsure if or when Canadians will return. This wave of cancellations goes beyond a typical economic downturn. It's a collective stance against perceived disrespect. Travel has evolved into a form of soft power, where the choice to visit or not becomes a statement about values. As Canada turns away from U.S. destinations, it's forging new paths by nurturing relationships in Europe and Asia. These emerging alliances reflect Canada's broader strategy: diversify trade, reduce reliance on a single partner, and protect national interests. In parallel, tensions across the Atlantic are escalating, with the European Union challenging U.S. tariff policies and tech regulations. President Trump's criticism of Europe's trade rules and decision to impose tariffs on steel and aluminum reignited long-standing disputes. European countries, faced with what they view as protectionist measures, are hitting back with tariffs aimed at politically sensitive U.S. exports. Agricultural products, luxury goods, and even automobiles are now targeted, pressuring Washington to reconsider its trade stance. Tesla, once a shining symbol of American innovation, is caught in the crossfire, losing favor among European buyers and institutions. Norway, known for its strong embrace of electric vehicles, saw Tesla's market share drop from over 20% to just above 7% in a single year. Critics in Europe highlight not only pricing and labor issues, but also Elon Musk's controversial political statements, which alienate many consumers. Danish pension funds pulled investments from Tesla, citing concerns over labor agreements, shifting the EV market dynamic. Other car makers, including Volkswagen and China's BYD, are filling the gap, offering competitive alternatives that resonate with local preferences. Meanwhile, Canada is pivoting in unexpected ways, collaborating with European countries for defense procurement rather than relying on U.S. suppliers. By purchasing advanced radar systems from Australia and jets from Sweden Saab, Canada is sending a message that it's ready to go its own way. These moves underscore Canada's resolve to protect Arctic interests while staying resilient to unpredictable U.S. policies. The Arctic is emerging as a major strategic point, rich in resources and open to new shipping lanes as ice recedes due to climate change. Canada's choice to bolster surveillance and military capability there reveals an urgency to secure sovereignty in a rapidly evolving environment. All these developments point to a broader reshuffling of alliances, one where the U.S. is no longer the uncontested cornerstone for trade or security. European nations responding to fresh tariffs are also looking to secure energy deals and supply chains outside of the U.S. sphere. Russia's unpredictability has driven the EU to seek stable partners, and Canada's abundant resources offer a promising alternative. The comprehensive economic and trade agreement between Canada and the EU has already dismantled numerous tariffs, spurring bilateral growth. Canadian corporations, from manufacturing to logistics, are seizing the chance to diversify, forging ties with Latin America and Asia as well. This shift, once unthinkable, highlights a global trend. Nations are less willing to overlook policies they find hostile or unfair. Real estate markets in states like Florida are feeling the impact of Canadian property sales, while hotels in Las Vegas note a dip in visitors. Investors from Canada are pulling capital from U.S. ventures, redirecting it to European or Asian opportunities they consider more stable. Such actions, quiet but collective, challenge the narrative that trade relationships are set in stone. Just a 10% drop in Canadian tourism threatens more than 100,000 American jobs, spanning hospitality, retail, and transportation. These figures underline how interconnected economies can be and how swiftly political tensions can disrupt them. On the U.S. side, there's growing concern over whether leaders will adjust policies to mend the rift or double down on protectionism. Canada's new alliances with Europe reflect a future where no single power dominates, and smaller nations wield more leverage by banding together. The global stage is witnessing a transformation as economic moves increasingly serve as instruments of political protest. Tourism boycotts, divestments, and shifts in defense procurement all signal a deeper dissatisfaction that diplomacy alone might not quell. Citizens, once passive tourists, now see their vacation choices as ways to champion national pride or criticize foreign leadership. These shifts reach beyond immediate financial losses and hint at a reevaluation of what it means to be a neighbor or an ally. Technology giants once relied on stable regulations from the U.S., but Europe's scrutiny of data privacy and labor standards adds complexity. Amid these changes, Tesla's predicament reflects a broader challenge for American companies, struggling with local European norms and sentiments. Canadian pride is also fueling momentum for domestic production and innovation, driving the push to reduce reliance on the U.S. supply chain. New economic corridors are emerging, and countries like Japan, Australia, and South Korea stand ready to fill any void left by U.S. policy shifts. Whether the U.S. can reclaim its position as a favored partner depends on bridging widening gaps through mutual respect and fair trade practices. Canada's strategic embrace of new defense systems highlights its desire to remain prepared in an increasingly unpredictable global climate. At the same time, Europe's intention to slap tariffs on goods from Republican-leaning states underscores how trade can become overtly political. This has turned once stable relationships into battlegrounds where tariffs, boycotts, and alliances shape a rapidly changing landscape. Nobody expected the U.S.-Canada relationship, worth over $700 billion in annual trade, to become so strained, but deep resentments have surfaced. For Canadian businesses, diversifying away from the U.S. reduces exposure to sudden policy changes that can devastate entire industries. The emotional dimension of national pride amplifies every trade dispute, and social media broadcasts these sentiments worldwide in an instant. Boycotts, though not violent, can be just as powerful at reshaping economic realities and sending unmistakable political messages. As these alliances shift, the global economy is transforming, and countries might follow Canada's example if they feel undervalued or disrespected. The resulting realignment could give rise to a new order where multiple centers of power coexist, forging a more complex network of ties. For now, travelers and investors alike watch nervously to see if the U.S. will reconcile with its closest neighbor or push it further away. Europe, too, stands at a crossroads, deciding whether to deepen cooperation with North American allies or isolate itself with retaliatory measures. All this unfolds against the backdrop of major global concerns, from security in the Arctic to the race for new sources of energy. Tourism, once purely recreational, now reverberates with the echoes of political protest, reflecting a world where borders hold deeper meaning. Canada's decision to quietly pull out of the U.S. market underscores how unity can unravel when trust disappears. This is more than a temporary rift. It's a story of evolving identities and the fight for respect on the global stage. Change often starts with small actions, like a canceled hotel booking or a delayed business deal, eventually leading to broad structural shifts. The lesson is clear. Even the mightiest alliances can be tested if one side feels taken for granted or disregarded. Canada's path forward involves forging new partnerships that reflect shared values and predictability, leaving behind decades of near-automatic alignment with its neighbor. If current trends continue, the U.S. may find itself competing harder for allies that once came naturally, and rethinking the power it wields through trade policies. Tourism boycotts, strategic defense deals, and redirected investment streams are transforming how global partnerships form. All eyes now turn to the next move. Will the U.S. adjust and repair the relationship, or will Canada's realignment define a new status quo? What began as a shift in tourism has rippled into a defining moment for North American ties, reshaping economic and diplomatic landscapes for years to come.